I always thought birthdays were meant to bring people together. But that year, mine became the day everything I believed about love, family, and motherhood shattered into pieces. You see, my name is Margaret, and I'm 75 years old. I live alone now, in the same small house where I once raised my children. If you are listening to this, please don't go anywhere, because what happened on my birthday will make you rethink what family really means. And before we go any further, please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. It helps stories like mine reach more hearts that need to hear them. Now, let me tell you how it all began. That morning, I woke up to the sound of birds outside my window. The sunlight came in soft through the curtains, gentle and golden, the kind that makes you believe the day might still be kind to you. I smiled to myself. 75, I thought. I made it this far. I put on my favorite blue dress, the one my late husband, Richard, always loved on me. He used to say it made my eyes look calm, like the sea after a storm. I even took a little extra time to curl my hair, though my hands shook a bit more than they used to. Because tonight, my children were coming. Sarah, my eldest, had called me a few days before and said, "Mom, don't worry about anything this year. We've got it all planned." And Daniel, my son, had simply said, "Yeah, I'll be there." It had been so long since the three of us sat together at one table. So long since laughter had filled this house. So I wanted everything to be perfect, just like it used to be. All day, I kept myself busy, setting the table, baking my old chocolate cake recipe, the one they used to beg for as kids. I even polished the old silver spoons they used to fight over. I told myself, maybe tonight we'll laugh about those little things again. The house smelled of sugar and vanilla, a smell that used to mean home. When I finally heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway, my heart skipped a beat. "They're here," I whispered, wiping my hands on my apron. Sarah came in first, tall, polished, wearing an expensive coat that didn't quite belong in this old house. "Mom. Happy birthday," she said brightly, leaning in for a hug. But it was quick. Distant. Like she didn't want to wrinkle her clothes. Behind her came Daniel, his hands stuffed in his pockets, carrying a large white box. He gave a small nod. "Hey, Ma." I smiled so wide it almost hurt. "Oh, my darlings, it's so good to see you both." I reached for Daniel's arm, but he moved past me toward the living room. Something in my chest tightened. But I brushed it away. Not tonight, I told myself. Tonight must be happy. Dinner started quietly. Too quietly. They picked at their food, barely looking at me. I tried to start conversations like I used to. "How's work, Sarah?" She didn't look up. "Busy, as always." "And you, Daniel? The construction job treating you well?" He shrugged. "Yeah, fine." The air between us felt heavy, like there were words none of us dared to say. I forced a laugh. "You both remind me of your father when he'd get home from work, too tired to talk." "I used to." Sarah suddenly cut me off. "Mom, we actually wanted to talk to you about something important tonight." Her tone changed. It wasn't soft. It wasn't casual. "Oh," I said, confused but still smiling. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" Before she could answer, Daniel got up and walked to the other room. I heard him open that white box. When he came back, he wasn't holding a gift. He was holding an envelope. He set it down on the table in front of me, right next to my slice of birthday cake. I laughed nervously. "What's this? A surprise card?" Neither of them smiled. Sarah folded her hands tightly in front of her. "Mom, please don't be upset, okay? We've been thinking about what's best for you." I frowned. "Best for me?" Daniel leaned forward, his tone too calm. "Yeah, Ma. You're not getting any younger. We think it's time you had a little more help." My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" Sarah slid the envelope closer. "It's from Oak Ridge Care. It's one of the best nursing homes in the city. You'll have a private room, a nurse, everything." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "A nursing home?" Her eyes softened, with guilt, not love. "Please, Mom. We just want you to be safe. We can't always be here." You've been forgetting things, Anne. Forget. I forgot to buy milk last week, Sarah. That's all. I said, my voice trembling. Daniel sighed. Mom, you almost burned the kitchen. I spilled some tea, I snapped. You make it sound like I'm losing my mind. Mom, Sarah whispered, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We just want to help. I looked down at that envelope again. The birthday candles flickered between us like they were trying to stay alive in the cold. My hands trembled as I opened it. The words on the paper were heavy, lifeless. Admission contract, Oakridge Senior Living. My heart cracked open in silence. You already filled this out? I asked, voice shaking. Daniel didn't answer. Sarah said softly, we just thought it'd be easier for everyone. Easier for everyone. That sentence kept echoing in my mind. I raised my head slowly, looking at the two people I had loved more than life itself, and for the first time, they looked like strangers sitting at my table. You think I'm a burden, I whispered. Sarah blinked fast. No, Mom, we just… Yes, I said again, tears spilling now. You think I'm inconvenient. That, my love, is too much trouble. Mom, please don't twist this, Daniel said harshly. We're trying to do what's best. What's best? I laughed bitterly. By signing me away like I'm some responsibility you can't return? No one answered. The silence between us was louder than any argument could have been. Sarah stood up suddenly, brushing invisible crumbs off her lap. Mom, just think about it, okay? We'll talk again soon. Daniel didn't even look at me when he followed her to the door. The moment it closed, the house fell quiet. I stared at that paper, at my half-eaten cake, at the candles that had burned down to nothing. The smell of wax hung heavy in the air. And all I could whisper was, "Happy birthday to me." But something inside me shifted that night. Maybe it was heartbreak. Maybe it was strength. But I knew one thing for sure. If they thought I'd sign that paper quietly, they were wrong. The next morning, I woke up to a silence so thick it felt alive. The house, once echoing with laughter, footsteps, and the smell of pancakes on Sunday, now felt like a stranger's home. On the dining table still lay the nursing home contract, half crumpled from my shaking hands the night before. I thought maybe I'd dreamed it all, that maybe my children hadn't actually done this to me. But the ink was there. Their signatures were there. Reality was there. I sat by the window with my tea, watching the street outside. The same children who used to play with my Sarah and Daniel were now grown, walking their kids to school. Time, it moves so fast when you're not looking. I thought about all the nights I stayed awake when they were sick. All the times I went without so they could have more. And now, all they wanted was to send me away. Still, a mother's heart doesn't break easily. It bends, it bleeds, but it doesn't stop loving. So, I told myself, maybe they didn't mean it like that. Maybe they're just worried for me. Later that afternoon, I called Sarah. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "about last night." She sighed on the other end. "Mom, please. Don't start, okay? We just wanted what's best for you." Her tone, tired, impatient, cut through me sharper than any knife. "I understand," I said, trying to sound calm. "But I don't need to be in a home. I'm perfectly capable here. This house has been mine for 50 years. There was a pause. Then she said, "Mom, you fell last winter. You called me crying because you couldn't get up." I swallowed hard. I slipped on a rug. That could happen to anyone. "Mom, please. Don't make this harder. Daniel and I already spoke to the director at Oakridge. You'd love it there." Her voice softened, but it wasn't warmth, it was rehearsed concern. "You mean you already decided without asking me?" I said quietly. Another silence. Then a sigh. We can't take care of you anymore, Mom." The words felt like a cold slap. I didn't say anything. I just listened to the faint sound of her breathing on the phone. And for a moment, I realized something. It wasn't that they couldn't take care of me. It was that they didn't want to. When the call ended, I just sat there, staring at the same cup of tea that had long gone cold. That's when I saw it. A photo frame on the shelf, A picture of me holding Sarah as a newborn, smiling at the camera like the world was made of gold. Her tiny hand was wrapped around my finger. I touched the glass and whispered, "What happened to that little girl?" The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. No calls. No visits. Even the postman seemed to skip my door some mornings. I started talking to Richard again. Well, to his photo anyway. "I don't know what I did wrong," I told him one night, staring at his picture on the mantel. "Maybe I loved them too much. Maybe I gave them too easy a life." The picture didn't answer. It never did. A week later, Daniel showed up without warning. I was in the garden, trimming the roses. When I saw his car, my heart jumped. Maybe he came to apologize. Maybe he realized how wrong this all was. But when he stepped out, he wasn't smiling. He was holding a clipboard. "Hey, Ma," he said, avoiding my eyes. I wiped my hands on my apron. "Danny, what brings you here?" He cleared his throat. "Just came to help with some paperwork." My stomach turned. "What paperwork?" He hesitated. "You know, the nursing home thing. Sarah said you hadn't signed yet." I stared at him, stunned. "You're here to make me sign?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, please. Don't make this dramatic. We just want you safe." Safe. That word again. I took a step closer. "Do you know what would make me safe, Daniel? Having my children visit. Hearing your voice more than once a month. Not being left alone on holidays." He looked away. "Mom, that's not fair." "No," I said, my voice trembling. "What's not fair is the fact that the same boy I carried in my arms for years now wants to hand me off to strangers." For a moment, I saw it, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. But then it was gone. "Mom," he said quietly, "we already put down a deposit." My breath caught. "You what? Please don't get angry. It's non-refundable." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "You paid for my room?" I whispered. "Yeah," he said softly. "We thought you'd be happy once you saw it." Happy. They thought I'd be happy about being abandoned. I took a deep breath. "Danny, do you remember when you broke your arm in second grade?" He frowned. "What does that have to do with?" "I stayed up all night holding you because you cried every time you moved. I fed you with my hands for a week. I missed work. I didn't sleep." He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "I never told you I was too busy. I never said you were a burden. I never asked anyone to take you away from me." Tears welled in his eyes. "Mom, please. It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I whispered. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels exactly like that." He didn't answer. He just stood there, torn between guilt and stubborn pride. Finally, he muttered, "I'll come back next week. Maybe by then, you'll see we're right." And with that, he left. The sound of his car driving away was the loudest silence I'd ever heard. That night, I sat alone again, just me, the contract, and the ticking of the old clock Richard used to wind every Sunday. And that's when something inside me changed. If my children thought I was weak, if they thought they could sign my life away without my say, then maybe it was time to show them just how strong their mother really was. That following Sunday, my house smelled like cinnamon and roast chicken, just the way my children used to love it. I told myself, maybe this time will be different. Maybe they were coming not as caretakers or decision-makers, but simply as my children. Sarah arrived first, carrying a bouquet of lilies. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Happy belated birthday, Mom," she said, kissing my cheek. I smiled back, pretending not to notice how forced her tone was. A few minutes later, Daniel came in, holding a wrapped box. He looked uneasy, almost like he was carrying guilt inside that package. I wanted to believe things would go back to normal, that this dinner might heal something. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't. As we sat around the table, I tried to start light conversation. "So, how's work, sweetheart?" I asked Sarah, spooning soup into her bowl. She didn't look up. "Busy. Always busy." "And the kids?" "They're good," she replied shortly. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, Can we just eat first? Something in his tone made my stomach twist. Dinner felt quiet, too quiet. Forks clinking, glasses touching, but no laughter, no stories, no warmth. The air felt like it was holding its breath. And then I saw it. An envelope sitting right in the center of the table. Plain. White. Unopened. It wasn't there when I set the table. I looked at it, then at them. What's this? Sarah and Daniel exchanged glances. Go on, Mom, Daniel said softly. It's from us. My heart lifted for a second. Maybe it was a letter, or tickets to somewhere nice. My children used to be thoughtful like that. I smiled faintly and reached for it. Oh, you two shouldn't have. But the moment my fingers touched the paper, the air changed. I could feel the tension. Like everyone was waiting for something heavy to drop. My hands trembled as I opened the flap and pulled out the papers. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Rows of printed lines, my name typed neatly on top. A signature line at the bottom. Then, the words hit me like a punch to the chest. Residential Care Agreement, Oak Ridge Senior Living Facility. The room spun for a second. What is this? I whispered. Sarah shifted in her chair. It's just something we thought would be best for you. Best for me. I repeated, my voice cracking. You mean a nursing home? Mom, Daniel said, trying to sound calm, it's not what you think. Oak Ridge is a really nice place. They have activities, gardens, professional care. I dropped the papers on the table. Professional care. I don't need a caretaker. I need my family. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah finally spoke, her tone sharp with frustration. Mom, you can't live alone forever. You forget things. You slipped last year. We just want you safe. I stared at her, at the same face I once kissed every night before bed. Safe, I said bitterly. That's what you call it. Daniel reached across the table. Please don't get upset. We're only trying to help. Help, I said, pushing the papers away. You're trying to get rid of me. I looked from one to the other, their faces calm, rehearsed, almost detached. My heart pounded in my chest. I gave up everything for you, I whispered. Your father's death nearly broke me, but I held it together for you both. And now, this is what I get. Sarah's jaw tightened. Mom, you're being dramatic. Something inside me snapped. Dramatic? You hand me a contract that sends me away from my own home, and you call that love? Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. Daniel stood, his voice low. Mom, please. We just can't do this anymore. You're stubborn, you don't listen, you need care. We're not abandoning you. I looked at him and saw no malice, just guilt wrapped in denial. And maybe that hurt even more. Daniel, I said softly, do you know what you're asking me to do? He swallowed. Just sign it. We already spoke with the director. There's a room waiting for you. My chest tightened. A room waiting for me, I repeated. You make it sound like I'm a suitcase to be stored away. Sarah pushed her plate aside. Mom, please don't turn this into a scene. We're doing what's necessary. My lips trembled. What's necessary, I whispered, is remembering who raised you. Who fed you when we had nothing. Who stayed awake through every storm while you slept warm in your beds. Neither of them looked up. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling the ache spread. How did my love become your inconvenience? No one answered. Finally, I took a deep breath and said, I'm not signing anything tonight. Sarah's shoulders tensed. Mom. I said I'm not signing. Daniel exhaled heavily. We'll give you some time to think. He stood up, gathered the papers, and placed them gently beside my plate. But before walking away, he said something that froze my heart. Mom, we already told Oak Ridge you'd move in next month. Then they left. I sat there alone. The candles flickered out one by one until the room was dark. I looked at the empty chairs where my children once laughed, where birthdays used to mean something. And now, all that was left was an envelope. I picked it up, stared at it again, and whispered to myself. If this is love, Then I don't understand love anymore. But somewhere deep inside me, a small voice whispered back, "This isn't over yet." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my chair by the window, watching the moonlight spill over the dining table, the same table where they once made me laugh, and where they now left a contract for my exile. The papers still lay there, folded neatly. Every time I looked at them, I felt my chest tighten. By morning, I made tea, 2 cups out of habit. Then I realized no one else would be joining me. A knock at the door broke the silence. Sarah stood there, holding her phone and a folder. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded, though I could feel the tremor in my hands. She sat across from me, carefully placing the folder between us. "I know you're upset, Mom. But please, try to understand where we're coming from." I stared at her, this woman who once cried when I bandaged her scraped knees. "Understand?" I said quietly. "You handed me a nursing home contract on my birthday, Sarah." She sighed. "We didn't mean to upset you. It was just the right time to bring it up." "The right time?" My voice cracked. "You think telling your mother you're sending her away, on her birthday, was the right time?" Sarah looked down. "Mom, you've been forgetting things. You left the stove on last week. You get dizzy sometimes. What if something happens when we're not here?" I looked at her, my lips trembling. "And instead of helping me, your solution is to put me away." "It's not like that," she snapped, then immediately softened. "It's not like that, Mom. You'll have people around you, doctors, friends your age." "Friends my age?" I whispered, shaking my head. "Sarah, my friends are buried. The few who remain, they fight every day just to remember their own names." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't speak. Then Daniel came in. He didn't even look surprised to see Sarah already there. "Morning, Mom," he said calmly, as if nothing had happened. "Morning," I repeated bitterly. "It's a strange morning when your children decide to throw you out of your own home." He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom, please don't make it sound so harsh. We're just trying to make things easier, for all of us." "For all of us?" I echoed. "Or just for you?" Daniel exchanged a glance with Sarah. There it was again, that silent, guilty look that said everything they didn't have the courage to say out loud. I stood slowly, my knees aching, my heart heavier than ever. "Let me tell you something," I said softly. "When your father passed away, I promised myself you two would never feel abandoned. I worked 3 jobs. I skipped meals so you could eat. I stayed awake every night when you were sick. Do you remember any of that?" Daniel's voice was low. "Of course we do, Mom. But that was years ago. Things are different now." "Different how?" I whispered. "Is love supposed to expire?" Neither of them answered. Sarah opened the folder again, showing me glossy pictures of the facility. "Look, Mom, they have art classes, music therapy, gardens. You love flowers. It won't be so bad." I looked at the pictures. Clean rooms, smiling nurses, a staged garden with plastic smiles. It didn't look like home. It looked like waiting. I pushed the folder away. "You call that living? You want me to spend my last days painting fake sunsets while my children sell the house I built?" Their eyes widened, but I saw it, that flicker of guilt when I mentioned the house. "So that's what this is really about," I said quietly. "The house." Daniel's voice turned defensive. "Mom, don't start. We're not doing this for money." "Then what?" I asked. "Convenience." He hesitated. "We both have families, kids, jobs. We can't keep running back here every week." I let out a small, broken laugh. "Running back here?" I said. "You visit once a month, Daniel. Sometimes not even that." Sarah looked away. "It's not that we don't care, Mom. We just don't have time anymore." I nodded slowly, biting my lip to stop it from trembling. "Of course. You don't have time. But you had time to print papers, make appointments, and plan my move." The words came out sharper than I meant, but I didn't stop. "You've turned my love into a problem to solve." Daniel stepped closer. "Mom, please stop. We can't keep arguing about this. It's for your safety. My safety, I said, my voice trembling. No, Daniel. It's for your comfort. Silence filled the room again. I could feel the distance between us growing wider with every breath. Finally, I sat back down. I was tired, not from age, but from disappointment. Do you remember the last time we all laughed together? I asked softly. They didn't answer. I do, I continued. It was your father's anniversary. We sat in this very room, told stories, cried, and promised to always stay close. And now, this. Sarah's voice cracked. Mom, we just want what's best for you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the little girl she once was. The one who used to run to me after every nightmare. And now, she was the one turning mine into reality. I turned my eyes to the window. Outside, the sky was grey, clouds heavy with rain. You know, I said softly, when I was your age, I used to believe love could survive anything. I thought no matter how hard life got, family would always be enough. Sarah sniffled, tears threatening to fall. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. But maybe I was wrong, I whispered. Maybe love isn't enough, not when convenience gets in the way. The kettle whistled in the kitchen, breaking the silence. I stood and walked slowly to turn it off, my back to them. When I returned, neither of them could meet my eyes. I won't sign, I said quietly. Not today. Not tomorrow. Daniel rubbed his temples. Mom, please don't make this harder. Harder? I smiled faintly. No, sweetheart. What's hard is realizing the people you raised would rather see you gone than see you live on your own terms. Sarah wiped her tears. We're only thinking about your future. My future? I said softly. You just wrote me out of it. I took the papers, folded them neatly, and placed them back in the envelope. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to spend some time alone. I need to think about what kind of mother I've been, to deserve this. They stood there quietly. And for the first time in my life, my children had nothing left to say. As they walked out the door, I heard Daniel whisper, "She'll come around eventually." Sarah replied, "She has to." But as the door closed behind them, I whispered to myself, "They don't know me as well as they think they do." The night felt longer than usual. Every tick of the clock echoed like thunder in the empty house. I sat in bed, pretending to sleep, while my heart refused to rest. Their voices had faded hours ago, or so I thought. But sometime after midnight, I heard the soft hum of Daniel's car outside. The sound of the door opening quietly, followed by muffled whispers in the hallway. I froze. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But then I recognized Sarah's voice, low, nervous, trembling. "Daniel," she whispered, "do you really think she'll agree?" "She has to," he replied coldly. "If not, we'll have to handle it legally." My stomach dropped. "Legally?" Sarah asked. "You mean, forcing her?" "She's not in her right mind anymore," Daniel said, his tone flat. "The doctor already said she has early signs of dementia. If she refuses, we can use that." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. They were standing just outside my room. I heard papers shuffling, the sound of that cursed folder again. "Once she's out," Daniel continued, "we can put the house up for sale. You know how much it's worth, Sarah. Over $500,000. We could split it, pay off debts, fix your mortgage." Sarah hesitated. "I don't want to feel like we're stealing." "We're not," he said sharply. "We're being practical. She can't live alone anymore, and this house is too big to waste." I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth to stop myself from gasping. My heart was pounding so loud I thought they might hear it. I never thought I'd live to see the day when my own children discussed me like a problem, like a bill they couldn't afford. Sarah's voice quivered. "She won't forgive us, Daniel. You know how proud she is." He sighed. "She doesn't have to forgive us. She just has to go." I heard the faint creak of the floorboards as they walked toward the kitchen. I slipped quietly from my bed, my feet bare on the cold floor. The hallway light was faint, spilling under the door just enough for me to see their shadows moving. I leaned closer to listen. "Once she's in that place," Daniel said, "we can tell her it's temporary. After a few weeks, she'll get used to it. Maybe she won't even want to come back. Sarah's voice was small. You really think she'll just forget? He gave a dry laugh. She's already forgetting plenty. Give it time. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. They were talking about my memory as if it were an excuse, as if losing a few moments meant losing my worth. Okay, Sarah finally said. But, promise me we'll visit her. At least once a week. Daniel scoffed. You think I have time for that? Maybe you can go. Once in a while. There was a pause. A long, aching silence that said more than words ever could. And in that silence, I realized something that broke me completely. My children had already said goodbye to me long before I ever signed a paper. I stepped back from the door, feeling dizzy, weak, betrayed. My knees gave out for a moment, and I had to hold onto the wall to stay standing. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to ask them how they could do this to the woman who raised them. But all that came out was a quiet, broken whisper. How could you? Their voices stopped. Did you hear that? Sarah whispered. I panicked and stumbled back toward my bed, pretending to sleep. The door creaked open slowly. Mom! Sarah's voice was soft, cautious. I kept my eyes closed, breathing steady. She's asleep, Daniel muttered. Come on. Let's go before she wakes up. The door shut again. The house fell silent once more. When I finally opened my eyes, tears blurred everything. The moonlight shone across the floor, landing on a family photo that hung crooked on the wall, the one from Daniel's wedding. I stared at it through the tears. All those smiles, all those promises. Lies. I whispered to the photo. You were supposed to protect me, not trade me away. I didn't sleep again that night. I just sat there, counting the hours until morning. By dawn, my mind was made up. I wasn't going anywhere. If they wanted me gone, they would have to drag me out of my home themselves. At sunrise, I walked out to the kitchen. They were already gone, only a cold cup of coffee and that folder on the table. This time, I didn't look away. I opened it. The papers stared back at me, legal words, formal signatures, lines for me to sign away my freedom. At the bottom of one page, in Daniel's handwriting, I saw the note. Need Mom's signature before Friday. Friday. 2 days left. I folded the papers back carefully and tucked them under the drawer where I kept old photographs of their childhood. Then I sat at the table, clutching my tea, whispering to myself. You want to take my home? Fine. But I won't let you take my dignity. Later that morning, Sarah called. Her voice was cheerful, too cheerful. Hi Mom. Just checking in. Did you think about what we talked about? I closed my eyes and took a breath. Yes, I said softly. I thought about it all night. And, she asked nervously. I'll tell you when you come over, I said. Bring Daniel. She hesitated. Is everything okay? Yes, I said, forcing a smile she couldn't see. Everything's perfectly fine. But in my heart, I knew. Everything was about to change. As I hung up the phone, I looked at the house, the pictures on the walls, the clock, the couch where they grew up. If they thought I would quietly disappear, they were wrong. I had one final plan. And this time, they would hear my voice. The day of the dinner, the house looked just as it had every birthday before, warm lights, the smell of roasted chicken, and the faint sound of old music humming through the hallway. But this time, it wasn't celebration. It was preparation. Every move I made had a purpose now. Every dish I placed on the table, every candle I lit, they weren't for them to enjoy. They were reminders of what they were about to lose. By 6 o'clock, the car pulled into the driveway. I looked through the curtain and saw Daniel and Sarah step out, talking quietly. Daniel straightened his jacket, the same way he always did when he wanted to look responsible. Sarah held a gift bag, pretending everything was normal. I smiled bitterly to myself. They were still pretending. When they walked in, I greeted them the way I always had, softly, kindly, with open arms. Happy birthday, Mom, Sarah said, hugging me. Her voice trembled just slightly. Daniel kissed my cheek. You look wonderful. Do I? I asked gently. Even for someone who's apparently losing her mind? He froze for half a second. Mom, what are you talking about? I smiled. Oh, nothing, dear. Let's eat. The table was set just like old times, family plates, wine glasses, the old embroidered cloth my late husband loved. They sat down cautiously, both avoiding eye contact. So, I began as I poured the wine. How are the kids, Sarah? She forced a smile. They're good. Busy with school. You should visit more often. Maybe, I said. If I'm still around. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Daniel cleared his throat. Mom, we wanted to talk to you after dinner. Just about arrangements. I looked straight into his eyes. I know, Daniel. I've read the papers. He froze mid-bite. Sarah's fork clinked softly against her plate. You read them, she whispered. I nodded calmly. Every word. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Mom, we didn't mean to upset you. We were just worried about me. I interrupted. Or worried about losing this house. Daniel sighed heavily. It's not about the house, Mom. It's about what's best for you. What's best for me? I asked, my voice low but steady. And who decided that? You. The son who visits twice a month. Or the daughter who calls only when she needs help. Sarah broke down. Please don't say that. You know I love you. I smiled sadly. Do you? Because love doesn't hand someone a nursing home contract on their birthday. The room fell still. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. Daniel tried to regain control of the conversation. Mom, it's not safe for you to be alone anymore. We were just trying to plan ahead. I leaned back in my chair. Planning ahead? Is that what you call betrayal now? Sarah buried her face in her hands, whispering, I told you this would hurt her. I looked at her and spoke softly, No, darling. What hurts isn't the papers. It's realizing my own children see me as a burden. I stood up slowly, the chair creaking behind me. Then, I walked to the counter and returned with an envelope. I wanted to give you both something tonight too, I said, setting it on the table. Daniel frowned. What's this? Open it, I said calmly. He hesitated, then tore it open. Inside were documents, official ones, stamped and signed. His eyes widened as he read. Mom, what is this? It's the deed to this house, I said, pouring myself another glass of wine. I transferred it last week. Sarah gasped. To who? I looked up, my voice cold but composed. To the local women's shelter. They're going to turn it into a safe home for elderly women abandoned by their families. Daniel shot up from his seat. You did what? I didn't flinch. I gave it to someone who will actually use it for good. Someone who understands what it means to protect people, not discard them. Sarah's face turned pale. Mom, how could you? We grew up here. This house, I interrupted, was built on love and respect. The moment those left, the house stopped belonging to you. Daniel's voice shook with anger. This is insane. You can't just give away your property like that. Oh, I can, I said softly. And I did. He stared at me in disbelief. You'll regret this, Mom. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But at least it'll be my regret, not yours. Sarah stood there trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. We didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said quietly. That's what makes it hurt even more. You convinced yourselves it was kindness, but deep down, it was convenience. Daniel turned away, furious, pacing the floor. You've lost it, Mom. You really have. I took a slow sip of my wine, never breaking eye contact. No, Daniel. I finally found it, my voice. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the candles flickered. Sarah stayed behind, crying softly. Mom, she whispered, I don't know what to say. I reached across the table and held her hand. Then don't say anything, sweetheart. Just listen. She nodded through tears. I looked into her eyes and said quietly, You will understand one day. When your own children grow up. When they start treating you like a responsibility instead of a person. Her sobs deepened. I squeezed her hand gently. Now go, I said softly. Be with your brother. I need some time alone. She hesitated, then nodded and left. The house grew silent again, the way it used to be before they grew up, before betrayal replaced love. I looked around at the table, the half-eaten food, the candles burning low, the empty chairs. And I whispered to myself. They thought they could sign my future away. But I just rewrote it. As I blew out the last candle, the darkness didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt peaceful. Empowered. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the fragile mother they pitied. I was the woman they underestimated. And I had finally taken back my life. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains like nothing had happened. But inside me, something had shifted forever. I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the birds gather near the fence. They sang like they always did, free, unbothered. I envied them for that. For a moment, I almost believed the peace would last. But peace, in this family, never lasted long. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then again. When I finally answered, Daniel's voice thundered through the line. Mom, what did you do? I stayed silent for a second, calm and deliberate. Good morning to you too, Daniel. Don't do that, he snapped. Don't play games. The lawyer called me this morning. He confirmed everything. You actually gave the house away? Yes, I said simply. I did. You've lost your mind. No, I replied softly. I just finally found the courage you never thought I had. He went quiet. For a moment, I could hear him breathing hard on the other end. Then his voice cracked. Mom, why would you do this to us? Because, I said, you already did it to me. A long silence. Then the line went dead. I looked at the phone, my heart heavy but steady. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel triumphant. Just relieved. For once, the pain wasn't eating me alive. Later that day, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Sarah stood there, her eyes red, holding a grocery bag. Can I come in? She asked quietly. Of course, I said, stepping aside. She walked in slowly, looking around as if the walls themselves felt different. In a way, they did. The air was lighter now, no lies, no pretense. We sat at the table. She placed the groceries down. I brought you some soup, she said softly. Thank you, I whispered. You didn't have to. I wanted to, she said. Then, after a long pause, I'm sorry, Mom. I looked at her, really looked at her. My daughter. The same little girl who used to bring me dandelions from the yard. Are you sorry? I asked gently, because of what you did, or because you lost something you wanted? Tears filled her eyes. Both, she admitted. Her honesty pierced me, but it also warmed something small inside my chest. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. Daniel pushed me. He said it was the right thing to do. I went along with it. I nodded slowly. It's easier to go along than to stand up. I know. I did that for years too, for both of you. She wiped her tears. He's angry. He says he's done with you. That you embarrassed him. I gave a faint smile. If telling the truth embarrasses him, then maybe he needed to be embarrassed. Sarah let out a shaky breath. Mom, what are you going to do now? I looked out the window again, the garden glowing under the late afternoon sun. I'm going to live, I said softly. Not just survive. I'm moving to a small community home next month. Somewhere peaceful. Somewhere I'm wanted. Her eyes widened. A nursing home? No, I smiled. A place of choice, not exile. A community where women like me start over. Sarah nodded slowly, tears streaming again. I wish I could take it all back. I reached over and brushed her hair gently, like I did when she was little. You can't, I said softly. But you can learn. That's all that matters now. That evening, after she left, I sat down to write a letter, not to my children, but to myself. Dear Margaret, I wrote. You spent 75 years loving others. Maybe it's time to spend the rest loving yourself. As I sealed the envelope, I felt something inside me settle, like a wound finally closing. The next few days passed quietly. I donated the rest of my belongings to the shelter. Boxes of clothes, books, photo albums, pieces of me that had once been tied to this house. One morning, I walked outside and saw a woman standing at the gate. She was one of the volunteers from the charity. "Mrs. Thompson," she asked with a smile. "We just wanted to thank you again. Your donation will help build the new wing. We're naming it Margaret's Haven." My breath caught. Margaret's Haven? She nodded. "For women who've been abandoned or forgotten. Just like you once felt." Tears welled in my eyes, but this time, they were warm. Healing. Later that evening, I sat in the living room for the last time. The sunset painted the walls gold, and the ticking clock marked each final second I'd ever spend here. I whispered to the empty house. "Goodbye, my old friend. Thank you for everything." Then I picked up my small suitcase and walked out the door. As I closed the gate behind me, I saw Daniel's car parked across the street. He didn't come out, just sat there, watching. For a long moment, we locked eyes through the glass. No words. Just understanding. And maybe, just maybe, regret. Then I turned away and kept walking. That night, I stayed with a friend from the community home. She listened quietly as I told her everything. When I finished, she smiled and said, "You're brave, Margaret. Most people would have broken. You didn't." I smiled faintly. "Oh, I broke," I said. "But sometimes breaking is what lets the light in." As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, a strange peace came over me. The kind I hadn't felt in years. I had no mansion. No fortune. No children waiting at the table. But I had something far more precious, my dignity, my voice, and the quiet comfort of knowing I finally stood up for myself. Because sometimes, the greatest act of love isn't forgiveness. It's freedom. And I had finally given that. When I first arrived at Rosewood Community Home, I didn't know what to expect. I thought I'd find more loneliness. More silence. Maybe even more memories to haunt me. But what I found instead was laughter. It wasn't the kind that filled mansions or echoed in big family dinners. It was softer, shared between strangers who had learned how to survive heartbreak. The moment I walked through those doors, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes hugged me without even asking. "Welcome home, Margaret," she said. And for the first time in years, someone's words actually felt like home. The air at Rosewood smelled like flowers and old books. The rooms weren't perfect, but they were warm, full of photographs, knitting yarn, and people who greeted you like you mattered. Every morning, we gathered in the garden for tea. Some told stories about children who forgot them. Others spoke about husbands who had left too soon. But none of us cried for pity. We cried for understanding. Because here, no one had to explain why their heart still hurt. One afternoon, I sat under the oak tree writing in my journal when a nurse approached me. "Mrs. Thompson," she said with a gentle smile. "There's a letter for you." I hesitated before taking it. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar. It was Sarah's. I stared at it for a long time before finally opening it. "Dear Mom, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Daniel won't talk to me anymore. He says you chose strangers over us. But I know now that we were the ones who became strangers first. You were right. Love shouldn't feel like convenience. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. Love, Sarah." Tears filled my eyes as I folded the letter gently. I didn't feel anger anymore, only a quiet, bittersweet peace. She was trying. And that meant something. Later that evening, I sat with my new friend, Evelyn, a sharp, witty woman who'd survived her own kind of betrayal. She poured us tea and smiled. "You've been quiet today. What's on your mind?" I smiled faintly. "A letter. From my daughter." "Good news or bad?" she asked. "Neither," I said softly. "Just, real." Evelyn nodded knowingly. "Real is good. Betrayal means healing has started." I looked out at the sunset glowing orange through the windows. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" She smiled. Maybe not today. But one day, when they're standing where you stood, they will. Her words settled deep inside me, simple, but true. Weeks passed. I started helping in the garden, planting flowers where the soil had long been dry. There was something poetic about it. Watching life return to the ground, one seed at a time. It reminded me of myself. Broken, buried, but still capable of blooming again. One morning, as I watered the flowers, a young volunteer approached. He was probably in his 20s, full of energy and kindness. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, "some of the ladies told me about what you did, donating your home. That's incredible." I smiled softly. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was an awakening. He grinned. "Well, you changed lives. That new wing, Margaret's Haven, opened last week. They've already taken in 3 women." For a moment, my breath caught. "My house," I whispered. He nodded proudly. "Your house. It's giving people a second chance." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked outside and looked up at the stars, the same ones I used to watch from my porch back home. I whispered softly, "Do you see that, Harold? My husband's name. Your home is still full of love. Just, not the kind we imagined." And in that stillness, I swear, I felt him there, not as a ghost, but as warmth. The same warmth that used to fill our kitchen when he laughed. Weeks turned into months. Sarah visited one afternoon, holding flowers and trembling hands. "Mom," she said softly, "I didn't come to take anything. I just wanted to see you." I smiled and opened my arms. "Then you're always welcome." She broke down in tears as she hugged me, the kind of hug that says I finally understand. "I visited the shelter," she said through tears. "It's beautiful, Mom. You did something amazing." "We did," I said. "You helped me see what mattered." That day, we sat in the garden until the sun disappeared. She talked. I listened. And for the first time in years, it felt like mother and daughter again, not strangers divided by guilt. When she left, she whispered, "I'll come back next week." And she did. Every week after that. As I watched her car disappear down the road, I smiled to myself. Life hadn't gone the way I imagined. But sometimes the broken paths are the ones that lead you home. I looked up at the sky one last time that evening and said quietly, "Thank you for giving me the strength to lose everything, just so I could find myself again." And for the first time in a long, long time, my heart finally felt light. If you are listening to this, please don't go anywhere. Because what I'm about to tell you might remind you of someone you've forgotten, maybe even yourself. Family isn't always blood. It's not about who shares your name or who sits beside you in a photograph. It's about who holds your heart when it's breaking. Who listens when everyone else walks away. Who stands by you when you have nothing left to give. I used to think family meant obligation, that I had to endure pain to prove love. That if I kept forgiving those who hurt me, maybe one day they'd finally see my worth. But I was wrong. Love shouldn't drain you. It should heal you. When I left that house, I thought I was walking away from my family. But what I really did was walk toward the people who would become one. At Rosewood, I found family in strangers. In laughter that came from shared scars. In hands that reached out not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And when my daughter Sarah came back, it wasn't because I forced her to love me. It was because she finally understood the kind of love I had been offering all along. The love that doesn't demand, the love that gives even when it's not returned. Sometimes, life teaches us through loss. Sometimes, it breaks us, not to punish, but to rebuild us into something softer, something stronger. I lost my house. I lost my children for a while. But I gained something I never expected, peace. Peace in knowing that I am enough. Peace in knowing that even if no one applauds your kindness, it still matters. Maybe you're listening right now and you feel forgotten. Maybe you've given everything to people who never said thank you. Maybe you're holding on to pain that no one else can see. But hear me, please, your heart still has meaning. Your love still matters. And one day, someone will see the light you carry, even if today it feels invisible. When you choose kindness despite cruelty. When you choose forgiveness over revenge. When you choose to keep giving love even when the world tells you not to, that's when you've truly found what family means. Because family isn't built by blood. It's built by love. If this story touched your heart, please don't go anywhere just yet. Before you leave, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who might need to hear it tonight. Because you never know, your one share might reach a heart that's quietly breaking, just like mine once was. And remember, love doesn't make you weak. It makes you human.